All right, we are going to do section 1.7, which is the last section of chapter 1. We're going to start with the warm-up to review what we did a couple days ago and then move on. I did copy this chart from the other notes so that we had it down here. If you want to do the same thing, just pause me and go grab it from up above and bring it on down. 360 degrees. This has to give the sine and the cosine of each angle. 360 degrees is an axis angle. So really all you have to do, you don't have to find a reference angle or anything like that. All you got to do is know that 360 degrees lands right here. And then you just have to know what the sine and the cosine are right there. So if you think about your ordered pair, you move to the right one and you don't move up or down at all. And then those correspond directly to your sine and your cosine. So cosine is the x value, so your cosine is the 1, and then your sine is 0 because that's the y value. If you wanted to, you could have said 360 minus 360 to get 0 as your reference angle, and then you could have looked right here. Okay, that's fine if you want to do that. All right, 210. 210 is in quadrant 3. So you're going to do 210 minus 180 because it's theta minus 180 in quadrant 3. And you get 30 as your reference angle. Okay? So for 30 degrees, the sine and the cosine, sine is 1/2 and cosine is radical 3 over 2. So 1/2 and radical 3 over 2. We are in quadrant 3, so if you remember, everything in quadrant 3 is negative, so just throw some negatives in front and you're done. 5 pi over 6, if you don't like it, that's fine, change it. So 5 pi over 6, if you want to multiply by 180 over pi, you can do so and you get 150 degrees, okay? 150 degrees is in quadrant 2. So in quadrant 2, you do 180 minus 150 and you get 30. So it's the exact same numbers as up above because they have the same reference angle. So it's 1/2 and radical 3 over 2. And you are in quadrant 2 at 150 degrees. You're not all the way to 180 yet, so you're still in quadrant 2. So in quadrant 2, sine is positive because it's up, and cosine is negative because it's to the left. Just make sure you put those signs in there. Once you think you're done, always go back and check your signs. All right, 7 pi over 4, same thing. If you don't like it, change it. So you can multiply it by 180 over pi. And when you do that, you get 315. So if you want to find your reference angle, you're going to do 360 minus 315, and you get 45. Sine and the cosine of 45 are identical. They're both radical 2 over 2. You can look at your chart. You can use your hands. Just know that 45 is radical 2 over 2. Then you just have to fill it in. We are in quadrant 4. Remember, this is actually a quadrant 4 angle. Sine is y, which is down in quadrant 4, so that is negative. Cosine is x, positive, because it's to the right. And then you're done. We are evaluating, so basically all we're doing today is what we just did in the warm-up, except then we're also going to multiply or add or subtract once we have those values. So it's not that much extra. It's not bad. All right, so now that we can tell quickly the sine and the cosine of all of the important angles, we can go ahead and evaluate. There are just 2 steps. The first one is to evaluate each part individually and then to perform the indicated operation, which means I'm going to find the sine of 90, I'm going to find the cosine of 45, and then I'm going to multiply them together because that's what this is telling me to do. Okay? Sine of 90, if you want to use your table, if you want to use your hand, if you just know it's an axis angle and sine is up, you understand and you know that the sine of 90 is 1. 45 is always radical 2 over 2, regardless if it's sine or cosine. And since it's 45 degrees, that's in quadrant 1, so everything is positive. Then, if you look up at the original problem, it's asking you to multiply those two together. So it's just 1 times radical 2 over 2, which is just radical 2 over 2. That's it. So it's exactly what we've been practicing. It's just once you have the answers, then you have to multiply them or add them or whatever after that. So we'll do 3, and then we'll be done. 360 is the same as 0, so the cosine of 0 or the cosine of 360 is 1, because you're going right 1, minus the sine of 30. If you want to use your fingers, put your ring finger down, sine's on the bottom, so it's 1 over 2. And then it's asking you to subtract them, so it's just 1 minus 1/2, which is 1/2. And then you're done. They were both positive, so you didn't have to worry about that. And then you just get your answer. All right, this is telling you to do 2 times the sine of 60. So 2 times, and then you just need to know what the sine of 60 is. So if you want to use your fingers, you can put your pointer finger down. Sine is below. You got 3 fingers underneath, so that's the square root of 3, and it's always over 2. And when you take the square root of 3 over 2 and multiply it by 2, you just get the square root of 3. Last one, 210. This one you're going to have to find a reference angle first. So 210 is in quadrant 3, so reference angle's in quadrant 3. You do 210 minus 180, and you get 30. So we need to know what the cosine of 30 is. The cosine of 30 is the square root of 3 over 2, except we were originally at 210, which is in quadrant 3, which makes it negative radical 3 over 2. Okay? The subtraction sign gets dropped down, and then we can go ahead and do 240. 240, we also need to find the reference angle. It is also in quadrant 3, so we're going to do 240 minus 180, which gives you 60. The sine of 60 is radical 3 over 2. However, once again, we were originally in quadrant 3, making it negative radical 3 over 2. So all I did was find the cosine of 210, find the sine of 240, completely separately, like 2 separate problems. Now that all of that is done, now I can look at this problem as a whole. It is asking me to take negative radical 3 over 2 and subtract a negative radical 3 over 2. Subtracting a negative, we should know from years and years, is adding. So that's negative radical 3 over 2 plus radical 3 over 2. When you have something negative and you add the same thing, you just get 0. Oops. Okay? And then that's it. Okay? So you just do each part separately like we've been doing for days, and then you do the multiplication or the addition or subtraction or whatever it's asking you to do. Your worksheet is 1-7, and you also need to be getting ready for your quiz. There's a quiz review on there as well. Let me know what you need.